it's Ann Taylor Pittman, Executive Editor at Cooking Light. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I have a really fun snack to share with you. It's perfect for back to school time. I know a lot of moms are thinking about after school snacks they can make for their kids that they can feel good about, or little treats to tuck into lunch boxes. So that's what today is about. In our September issue, if you happen to have this at home, we have a feature that has a formula for snack bars, homemade basically granola bars that you can make where you can customize with some of the ingredients that you love the most, and I'll talk with you a little bit about that. The one I'm going to be showing you today is our PB-Pretzel apple bars. So peanut butter, pretzel, and dried apples go into this bar. And I'll talk to you all about different substitutions that you can make. If peanut butter's not your thing, dried apples aren't your thing, that's okay. So it starts with 2 cups of rolled oats. So all of these bars have this starting point. 2 cups of rolled oats, old-fashioned oats. So quick oats don't have quite the right structure or texture. We want old-fashioned rolled oats. What you do is you spread them out onto a baking sheet, one with a rim so that things don't go flying off. And you're gonna toast this in the oven. So you're gonna turn your oven to 350 degrees and toast the oats for about 12 minutes. They should smell nice and toasty and nutty before they come out of the oven. Now we do that to add flavor and to help the overall texture of the bar. So toasting just boosts that flavor, makes the oatmeal taste sort of nutty and toasty. So I have 2 cups of that I've already toasted. I'll go ahead and put this in a bowl. So you want to toast these and then let them kind of cool off. They don't have to get completely cool, but you want them sort of cooled off. Okay, so 2 cups of oats. Now, I'm going to mix together the components that form the glue or the binder for these bars. And here's where you can start doing some customization. Okay, so in the recipe we say to do this in the microwave. I don't have a microwave here on set, so I'm gonna do it stovetop here on the induction burner. Which you could also do at home. You can just, sorry, I can't talk and do 2 things at once. At home you can do this in a saucepan too, just over low heat. We don't want to get these ingredients so hot that they're piping hot and melting. We just want, we do want them melted, we don't want them piping hot and boiling, okay? So here I have 1/3 cup of creamy peanut butter. Any nut butter or seed butter will work here. So, but in this particular version, I'm using peanut butter. I have not tried this with crunchy peanut butter. I would imagine that would work just fine, but I haven't tested it, so I'm not quite sure. So, if your school has an anti-peanut butter policy, you can try sunflower seed butter is a wonderful usually people are not allergic to that. It's a great alternative. Or any nut butter, cashew butter or almond butter. Anything that is going to add that rich flavor and also sort of help bind the ingredients together. Now, I just added 1/4 cup of honey, so that's the next component to our binder is 1/4 cup of liquid sweetener. It could be maple syrup, it could be agave, it could be brown rice syrup, it could be date syrup, but you just want a liquid sweetener. Again, that's going to help sort of bind all the ingredients together. This is getting a little too warm. I'm just turning down the heat. Okay, and then I have 1½ tablespoons of coconut oil. I tried this recipe with butter, I tried it with canola oil, I tried it with olive oil. It really works best with the coconut oil. Best for flavor because that sort of enhances the sweetness without adding additional sugar. It just kind of helps you perceive the whole mixture as a little bit sweeter than it actually is. But it also helps the bars stay together. So when I tried some of the other fats, the butter and the oils, the bars tended to crumble when I tried to cut them. So coconut oil, I can say from experience, works best. You could definitely try the other oils, just know that you might end up with a loose granola instead of bars that hold together, which is fine. Maybe that's what you want. The flavor will certainly be good. So I just want these ingredients, like I said, kind of heated enough so that the coconut oil melts, everything is smooth. I don't want it piping hot. I'm going to go ahead and pour it into a bowl just so it's not sitting in the hot pan. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. Let me just scrape everything out here. I don't want it piping hot because I want to move on with adding the other ingredients that go into our liquid mixture, namely egg white. So if this was piping hot, guess what would happen to my egg white? It would coagulate or cook or curdle or seize. We don't want that. Okay, so let me just test it. It's a little warm. So let me go ahead and add some of the other ingredients and whisk, and that might cool it off a little bit. So I have a teaspoon of vanilla extract. That is going to enhance our flavor. You could use another extract if you like almond extract. You could use that. I would not use a teaspoon. That stuff is pretty potent. I would use maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of the almond extract if I were going to use that. But here we're using a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. Now that is also going to boost the flavor. It's going to give these kind of a nice little salty hit. If you don't want that, you can definitely decrease to a 1/4 teaspoon, but you need a little salt to enhance the flavor. Okay, let me just whisk that. Test the temp. Oh yeah, we've already cooled off a fair amount. Okay, this is 1 egg white from 1 large egg, and that is also going to help kind of bring everything together and bind everything together.
And real quick,
Yep.
Don wants you to know that his wife loved this month's issue, especially the bars.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for letting me know that. I really appreciate it. I love these bars because you can, like I said, you can customize based on what you have on hand. You know, if you have almond butter instead of peanut butter, go for it. If you have certain dried fruits, which I'll get to in a minute, that you like better than others, go for it. Use those. You can sort of make your own concoctions, your own creations. Okay, I'm going to set this aside for just a second and add in the rest of my dry ingredients to the 2 cups of toasted oats. So here I have 1/3 cup of coarsely chopped dried apples. So I brought these guys so you can see, you know, these guys. These like dried apple rings. They're kind of squishy, kind of spongy in a good way. But they're just dried apples. Any dried fruit you like you can use. Dried blueberries, chopped dried apricots, raisins, dried cranberries, dried cherries. That's one of my favorites. 1/3 cup. Coarsely chopped. You don't want it super finely chopped because you want it to have some nice chewy texture. You want it to retain that in the finished bars. And then I'm going to chop these on camera. This is kind of fun for this. So this the fruit adds a little bit of tang, a little bit of chewiness, and some tart sweetness. Then you want to add some hearty crunch. So several of the bars use nuts. This particular bar uses pretzels, which is kind of fun, I think, because I love pretzels. I'm actually using gluten-free pretzels because honestly, it doesn't matter what brand you choose. I've tried several. We've done taste tests with different gluten-free pretzels. They are crunchier than traditional pretzels. So whether you're gluten-free or not, just know the gluten-free pretzels are crunchier. So you could, I'm using 1/2 cup. So this could be toasted nuts. This could be almonds, pecans, peanuts, anything you like. But here for my crunch, I'm using these pretzels. And I just want to cut them into kind of big pieces. I don't want them super fine because I want them to retain some shape and some texture. I need 1/2 cup. I might be using, like I said, nuts instead. Pistachios are great. Offer that nice green pop of green color. And it's probably more than I need, but let me just chop some of these just a little bit more. Okay, so that's 1/2 cup of crunch. Okay, so we have our base, which is the toasted oats. We have our chewy, fruity moment, which is our apples. We have our crunch here in the form of these pretzel pieces. And then we have our binder, which is the combination of the nut butter, the sweetener, which in this case we're using peanut butter, honey, and then the little bit of coconut oil with our flavor enhancers, salt, and vanilla.
quick question for you, Anne. So Brenda wants to know, going back to what you said you could use almond butter. If you did use almond butter, would you still use almond extract, or do you think it would be that in that case would be better with vanilla?
That is a great question. Depends on how almondy you like things. So if you used almond butter and added the almond extract, you could get kind of a nice sort of almost marzipan-y flavor if you like that. For some people, that might be a little too much. Almond extract is really kind of, it could be a dangerous ingredient because it's very strong. So you might actually, if you're using almond butter, I would say maybe even start with 1/8 teaspoon of almond extract and go up to maybe 1/4 if you need a little bit more flavor. Taste the mixture before you add the egg white and then see, what you think. That's a great question. I would tend to maybe stick with vanilla. I like vanilla. I'm a vanilla girl. Okay, so I'm going to add all of that liquid binder to the bowl here. And I want to mix it thoroughly. I want to make sure that everything is coated with that mixture. So you need to take your time, fold everything over and under, kind of smush it around to make sure you don't have any dry pockets. Because dry pockets will translate to crumbly bars once they're cooked. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Let me just turn it over a few more times just to be sure. Okay, everything looks nice and well coated. Okay, so now let me prepare my pan. Ideally, I would have done this, if you're making this recipe, this might be the first step you want to do. But I have an 8-inch square baking pan. I'm using a metal pan, and I want to line it with parchment paper. So I'm going to show you a cool trick that I learned from Justin Chappell, who does Mad Genius from our sister brand Food and Wine. I'm just going to kind of cut a little bit of the excess off. I don't want to cut all the excess off. I want some overhang, which I'll explain in a minute why. But if you've ever tried to push the parchment down into a pan to line it, it's a little tricky, it's a little hard. So what you can do to make it easier is to just kind of cut diagonal slits out from the corner to the edge of the pan, all 4 corners. And that's going to help everything kind of fold in and lay nicely in the pan. Seriously, this is one of the best things. I make blondies, I make brownies, and I do this, and it just makes it easier to get the parchment down in the pan. So now, I don't know, it's kind of hard to see, but when you have those cuts, everything just kind of folds in much easier. It's okay if you have a little bit of overlap in places, but it's just much easier to fit the paper into the pan than if you didn't have those cuts. Any of you who've tried that, you know what I'm talking about. It can be a little maddening to try to get the paper all down in there. But here, it's in here really nicely. I want a little bit of overhang so that when the bars are done, I can just lift the whole thing out of the pan with the paper without having to touch the hot pan. But I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit because you need to let it cool for a little bit first, and then you can lift it out of the pan. So let me add this mixture to the pan. Okay, and here's another important step. So I said mixing thoroughly was really important to help prevent crumbly bars. Here's something else that's really important to help prevent crumbly bars. You need to pack this mixture in. You need to press it down firmly so that everything just sort of becomes cohesive, and again, to help prevent the bars from crumbling. So I have it sort of patted in there. I'm going to go back, I'm going to press down with my spatula to make sure everything is packed in tightly. If it's too loose in there, after you bake it and cool it and try to cut it, it's going to crumble. So just pack it down in there, press it firmly. You can use, I'm using this spatula because I had it out. I used it when I was stirring, but if you have a flat spatula, you could use that too. Try to cover more area. Okay, and then this goes into a 350-degree oven for 20 to 22 minutes. You want it to get kind of golden brown. It does brown, it does darken a little bit. You'll be able to tell. You want it to be just a little bit browned. And then when it comes out, what you need to do is cool it in the pan. The recipe gives you these instructions. None of these instructions are arbitrary. So you want to cool it in the pan on a cooling rack for 15 minutes. Then after 15 minutes, you pull the whole thing out with the parchment paper and you let the bars cool on the cooling rack outside of the pan until they're completely cooled. And that's what I have here. Here's a batch that I made earlier. And this is our lovely, I see the pretzel pieces, some apple chunks. And we're just going to cut these into bars. We're making 12 bars. That was not a good job of cutting it in half, but we'll go with it. So I'm going to cut in half, then I'm going to cut into 6 bars so you get those nice little, thin bars. So I'm going to cut this into half, and then I know that I need to cut each one into thirds. I have a little bit of crumbly bits. That's okay. That's a snack for the cook. Overall,
question,
you get
Ann.
these nice bars that hold up well. Did you say that? Was there a question?
Sorry, quick question. So you've got all these bars. What's the best way to store them?
That's a great question. So you can store these in an airtight container for optimum flavor for about a week. However, I can say I've made these bars, I've kept them at home I developed these recipes, so I made a huge batch. I made like all 4 bars. I had these at home. They lasted for about 2 to 3 weeks, room temperature, in an airtight container. Kids just snacked on them and ate them and really were happy to have them in the house. You can also freeze them for longer. So you could pop these in the freezer and keep them for 2 to 3 months. So they do hold up nicely. You can tuck them into a lunchbox. Again, check with your school, make sure that they don't have an anti-peanut butter policy. If they do, there are other options, but you should check with your school to see what the policy is. So that's a really fun idea. Again, you can customize, you can use whatever dried fruit, whatever nut butter you like to make these your own, to make your own custom creation. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the lovely comments and thank you for the questions. I hope you've found something today that you can use in your own kitchen. We will actually be off next Monday. We are on vacation in celebration of Labor Day, or we have a holiday here, so I won't see you next week. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're watching on Facebook, please like and share this video. Thanks so much. I'll see you in 2 weeks.